Okay, welcome back for what is our final presentation of day two. So what I'd like to do now is to introduce you to Richard Pinnington from Calabrio. And what we're going to have is a presentation around workforce management and how you can move from survive to thrive in these changing times. So looking forward to hearing more, Richard.
Thanks very much, and hello and good afternoon, everybody. It's really good to join you virtually today. Here I am in my shed in Portishead. I feel like I've got cabin fever for the last number of months. My session today really will be to provide some insights in how workforce management software can help you address some of the key issues that you and your teams face when running remote contact centers today. If I just borrow from Owen's market study presentation this morning, he was describing how he's taken market study from those days in March through essentially a three-step journey, and he described it as the 3 R's: respond and recover, which they've already done. And now what they're really focusing on is how you can kind of move to the concept of renew. I'm picking up in my presentation some different words, but the same sentiment. As you might have gathered, I'm going to suggest that workforce management is a very valuable weapon in our armory along this respond, recover, and renew journey. The words that I'm using to describe that are react and adapt, which we all have to do, but now is really the time to thrive. And that, as you can see, is the title of my presentation. Let's just see if I can move that one forwards. Yeah, apologies, Jonathan. I have an issue just moving the slide set forward from where I am. So our little test at the start seems that something's gone awry.
Just going to have a quick look and see if I can access the slides from Sheridan.
Yeah, I'm showing that I'm screen sharing.
Okay, maybe
not able to control.
Okay, maybe turn the screen share off, and then usual thing, IT
control. On again.
Yeah, turn it back on again.
It's looking promising. That looks a lot better to me. Okay, so let me pick up again from where I was. So just shifting on to slide 2, which I hope you can all see now. This is the synopsis of my presentation. I thought it was a suitably concise description of what I wanted to talk about, but if you read the words closely, I'm picking up on some very important things. The words of flexibility, omnichannel forecasting, different planning models, the tools that you need, agent engagement, supervisor controls, SLAs. These are all critical things, and in some ways you could consider them the most critical elements of running a successful contact center operation. My overriding message really for the presentation is that the way agents and team leaders are having to work today has forced contact centers to seek out new ways to address these things. And as I hope to show you over the next 20 minutes or so, WFM can dramatically impact all of them. So this is what I'm intending to cover off. First of all, I'm going to briefly introduce you to Calabrio. Many of you may be more familiar with the Teleopti brand and less so about Calabrio. So I'll explain to you shortly where that all fits in. I'm going to reference some research relating to the challenges that our work-at-home colleagues faced. I'm referring to it as WAHA, the Work-at-Home Agent. How about that for a new acronym? You heard it here first. So I'll talk to you about some of those challenges. And of course, I want to make the case that these challenges present the perfect moment to consider WFM. So I'll explain how WFM can help in the successful running of a distributed workforce and a distributed contact center. When we show our workforce management application to planners and team leaders, they tend to fall in love with it quite quickly. But it really, no matter how much you love the WFM application, you'll still need to make a case internally to buy it. I'll suggest how you could go about doing that in a business case section towards the end. And then finally, I'll come back to those 3 words that I mentioned a little bit earlier, a call to arms in some ways about how we need to react, adapt, and now move to that final point of learning to thrive. But before I go any further, I just wanted to make sure that I did a level set on some of the terminology. I've been kind of liberally sprinkling in the phrase WFM already, and on a previous slide I referred to something called WFO. So I just wanted to kind of line a few things up. Many of you will be familiar with the terms, some of you less so. So let's make sure we're all on the same page here. Firstly, workforce management is that art of forecasting, as I've described it here. You're essentially taking historical data, omnichannel data these days as well, creating forecasts, and from those forecasts creating schedules for agents. Some of the key watchwords are about getting the right agents in the right place at the right time. It's all about making sure that you're not understaffing, and in which case you've got a problem with meeting SLAs, or overstaffing, in which case you're spending too much money on your agents on that particular day. So that's the kind of the WFM piece, and I'll be going into that in detail in the following slides. But it also exists as a component part of something that's collectively called workforce optimization. And I'm listing out on the right-hand side here the typical functions of a workforce optimization solution set. Workforce management is there, as I said, usually includes call and screen recording, quality, some e-learning and coaching, some analytics and reporting, and they're collectively referred to as workforce optimization. The optimization is really the key word here. The motivation often for deploying workforce optimization solutions in their entirety is to drive efficiency in the contact center. But this final bullet point or phrase has emerged in recent years, something called workforce experience management. And it essentially takes the concepts of workforce optimization above and really now starts to consider the well-being of agents, of employees, and starts to give the agents a voice. There's an increasing recognition, and I think generally we all understand that if you can create a happy agent, then you probably have a significant impact on the level of customer service that agent delivers. So a lot of the tools above in that list, in that WFO list, have been tuned in recent years to essentially provide more consideration for engagement and for the well-being, essentially, of agents themselves. So with that in mind, let me just now take the opportunity on a single slide to introduce you to Calabrio, and then we'll get into the story about WFM. So Calabrio is a US organization. We are global in nature, 700 people, a couple of $100 million of turnover, about 5,500 customers worldwide. The components of our solution set, you may have just seen them from the previous slide, include call recording, quality, workforce management, analytics, and reporting, and deep contact center BI. Just to give you an idea of what our application looks like, the screen that I've just built here is a typical screen that a quality manager would interface with. So on the left-hand side, we've got information about a particular customer, details about the agent for the interaction that this quality manager is studying. They would then do is take a look at the speech to text translation to see how that particular voice call in this example has played out. And then as you kind of move right across the screen, you're able to see things like the sentiment analysis of the call. You're able to see key phrases that were used. You're able to see the screens and different applications that the agent has toggled through time on this particular call. And then at the bottom right-hand side, you're actually able then to complete the quality evaluation. And then just to kind of complete this story for this overall workforce optimization suite that we have, this is a dashboard, and we make dashboards available for any user, no matter the role. There's a bespoke dashboard for them that's customizable. In this particular example, we're showing some gauges associated with things like Net Promoter Scores and agent evaluations that have been completed. But if you think that from a recording point of view, 100% of contact center calls are recorded, but a tiny fraction, maybe as little as 1%, is actually used. If you can take that information and embellish it with analytics and machine learning and AI to take the calls that you've analyzed through your quality department, look at study those calls, and then using AI, apply that same level of study across all calls and listen to 100% of them, and you'll then start to be able to get predictive scores and predictive sentiment analysis, and be able to start diving in and analyzing the particular calls or interactions that may be more of a problem, and that helps the quality manager to focus in on the key areas they really need to be taking a look at. Now, the final build of this slide is to bring Teleopti into the picture. I told you I would explain where that fits in. Teleopti was acquired by Calabrio last year. We're currently going through the process of taking the well-recognized and appreciated workforce management application that Teleopti had and integrating that into the Calabrio suite. So all of that work's taking place right now, and essentially we'll start to embrace the user interface of Calabrio, but using the engine, that very well regarded engine of workforce management that Teleopti brings us. So that's what we're working through right now, and that's where Teleopti fits into the Calabrio story. I've referenced employee engagement a number of times already. Let me use some research to set the scene regarding some of the changes in our lives this year. If you remember those heady days of February and March, where workers came together in the workplace to do their work and then went home. Remember those days? Then COVID hit, and within hours, workers were sent home to do their work. Some of the problems that we've all faced, you may recognize from this particular list. I certainly can put my hand up and say, yeah, I've certainly faced a great many of the issues that are described here. This is a piece of research from a US organization that surveyed 1,000 of their staff who had shifted to remote work. We've got the technology related items at the top, some things around the kind of the need for human interaction, FaceTime with colleagues, for example, in the middle. And then towards the bottom half of this particular graph, you'll start to see things that relate to how work life and home life have started to bleed into one another, and some issues and challenges for people associated with that. So while many of these things I think we've all experienced to a greater or lesser extent, one of the things that this piece of research identified was, despite all of these things, people generally seem quite satisfied with going remote. And I think we're all starting to understand the concept of hybrid working. So we better get used to this particular method. But one of the things I wanted to kind of pick out and take a slightly different lens on this list is that it really describes the reality of some of the things that your customers are dealing with right now at the point they make contact with you. So if they're in work, or if they're stuck at home, they're dealing with all of these things, and all of these things are going through their lives at the point that they make contact with you. And it's going to have an impact on how they contact you, when they contact you, how often, what they contact you about, how complex their interaction might be, and certainly the mood that they're in when they're making contact. So all of those things are going to have an impact on your planning assumptions and your models, and the role that your agents need to play, and also the levels of support that your supervisor and team leaders need to provide to those agents. So all of this does start to have an impact, and quite a significant one. Now, while that was a general survey of 1,000 people, not necessarily contact center related, I wanted to draw your attention to a piece of research that Calabrio has done. This is a survey of 300 contact center professionals split between the US and the UK. The name of the document is The State of the Contact Center, Embracing the Evolving World of Work. We've made this particular document available to you in the Calabrio booth within the hop-in interface. So you'll be able to download this full research document. It's quite a weighty tome, but I want to just pull out a couple of pieces of information. For team leaders and supervisors and managers, these 3 remote work pain points were identified, and they're discussed at length within the document. So managing employee productivity is very difficult for remote staff. Enabling that team connection and collaboration that was kind of slightly referenced on the prior research, that's clearly a big issue, as we're all aware. And then particularly from a contact center perspective, the lack of operational insight, managerial insights into what's going on is a problem when you can't just walk the floor and get involved and stay tuned in. And then the other piece of information that I wanted to share was this piece. I hope you can see it okay, but if I just kind of talk you through it, it's relating to the most important new agent skills or skill sets that you're going to need to try and identify during the recruitment process. So this is suggesting that you're going to need to test levels of independence, the ability of the agent to operate with limited supervision. You need to test problem solving with respect to that self-management bit. Are they able to solve problems themselves? And that extends to them being responsible for their own technical and technology setup at home as well, of course. And then perhaps one of the key points is what's their ability to collaborate within the team, to build out and forge a network with a group of people that they may not, for a long time at least, meet face to face. So what are their capabilities for that? Now, it strikes me that many contact centers have already got a blueprint for what they consider to be their kind of ideal agent. And we already know that many agents have to be super agents in the sense that they're the ones that are having to handle the more complex, increasingly complex interactions, as the website FAQs and chatbots have catered for the self or bot assisted stuff, and these super agents are now picking up the complex issues as well. Well, now this research is suggesting there's a whole new set of challenges that you need to cater for. So wouldn't it really be better if you could just keep the agents that you already had, if you could find ways to reduce churn in the first place? We're going to have to get used to this concept of working from home, contact center agents working from home. It's not a new thing for contact centers. Agents have been working from home for quite some time, either as in small pilots or trial basis, or maybe as some form of reward for certain agents. But we need to plan for this hybrid home working future, where agents aren't de facto on-prem, so to speak, and you really need to give them the tools to help them thrive and help your business thrive in that environment, which really is my kind of slightly crafty segue into this suggestion that when it comes to working from home, that's the perfect time to be considering workforce management. Excuse me, just kind of lost my train of thought there, just a second. Yes, sorry about that. Really, we're talking about an application that you could consider to be tailor-made really for a situation like this, where the planning assumptions that have helped you steer your contact center successfully through to the end of 2019 were then turned on their head in March and are still likely to be changing today. Really, the kind of key things that you need to be wrestling, or you are wrestling with right now, is agility and flexibility. Those are the two key things that rule the day. Things are changing so often that you need to be able to shift and adjust your plans, your forecasts, your schedules, your shift patterns very, very quickly to cater for huge differences that just weren't factored into your planning and forecasting models. And you have to do that and work out how you keep your finger on the pulse when you can't walk the floor. And it's really something that's that's more important than it ever was before. And let's just remember those pain points from the previous slide. We're talking about challenges with managing productivity, challenges associated with collaboration and connection of team members, and then the lack of operational insight as well. So let me take you into the world of WFM to give you an insight into how WFM itself can tackle some of these remote work pain points. First of all, I don't suppose it will be a surprise to many of you that a lot of organizations are still using spreadsheets for their forecasting and planning and schedule creation tasks. I've had some conversations this year with organizations that have decided that now's the time for WFM because the individual that built the spreadsheet runs the spreadsheet and essentially controls all of the running of the contact center through that spreadsheet, starting to get sick with COVID. So they've recognized that as a risk, and that they've used that as the trigger to deploy a full workforce management application. In this spreadsheet world, what you tend to find, and it might resonate with those of you that are running your centers through spreadsheets, some of them very sophisticated, that you tend to find that you run your operation, you design and define what you're able to do in terms of shift management for your agents based on what the model will allow you to do. It's one of those classic cases where the tail is wagging the dog. But let me just talk to you about where WFM might make sense, because there certainly is a place for spreadsheets today in the more simplistic contact centers. But many contact centers are just not simplistic anymore. They're not single shift and single language and simple queries that those centers are trying to handle. They're way more sophisticated than that. Omnichannel, of course. Multi-skilling then is critical in those environments. You've got agents on different contracts types that need to be factored in and catered for in the way that you build shifts, and those shifts are likely extended on an ever increasing business day. There's the concept of digital businesses that never close. So contact center organizations need to reflect that. We talked about this concept of a super agent having to handle ever more complex queries, and with that comes handle times, and all of that needs to be factored into your forecasting and planning and resourcing associated with it. And for all of that, trying to do all of those things within a spreadsheet, it really does consume time, and you end up, as I mentioned earlier, designing your business around what your spreadsheet is able to do and not necessarily what you actually optimally want to achieve as a company. This particular diagram represents some of the screens that are available within our workforce management application. At the center, you can see schedules. So I'll kind of talk to you about what's going on the left and what's going on to the right. So if you think that really what we're trying to do is to create schedules for agents, the inputs to allow us to do that are the forecasts shown on the left-hand side. So there's really sophisticated tools that help you build and create and essentially do some what-if type work on forecasting across multiple channels. So not just voice, we cater for voice and non-voice channels. Then you need to make sure that you've got the shift preferences and skill setups for each of the agents, that's built into the system as well. And then you actually plug in the shifts, the opening times, and the very specific activities that you want individual agents to do during the day. So that all of that gets crunched together to create the schedule. And then on the right-hand side, those schedules need to be communicated to agents. So top right is one particular screen view of the agent portal where agents can see what their shifts are. In this particular image, it's over the course of a week. And then the really important bit around intraday management, which is really the kind of one of the key things where you want to know if the agents are actually doing what you wanted them to be doing in any given day, is the number of interactions that are coming into the contact center at the levels that you forecast it to be that day. So team leaders and real-time planners really need to know what's going on a day-to-day and intraday basis, and we've got very powerful tools to help you manage that. And then finally, the bottom right-hand side is often you need to take data out of workforce management applications. For example, where agents have worked overtime, you need to feed that information into payroll systems, for example. Or you might want to do full dumps of data into contact center business information tools like Power BI. So all of those things are available as features within a workforce management application like ours. But again, before I move into the next section, I'm going to drill down into some of these bits. But I wanted to just stop to recall those key remote work pain points that we flagged earlier on. We're talking about team connection and collaboration, some of the challenges there. We're talking about employee productivity, and the team leaders want to be able to manage that productivity better than they're typically able to do in a remote setting. And then we want operational insights into the day-to-day running of the business. So how can workforce management specifically help with those things? So what we're looking at here, this is the agent engagement feature set from the Calabrio Teleopti WFM application. So we showed on that previous slide a portal that agents can log into to see their shifts, but that information is also available through a mobile app that's available through all of the mobile operating systems. So in this particular image, the first image here, we're looking at a daily schedule for an agent. That agent is able to take a look at, for example, a break and see if they're able to change the time of that break. We're giving them flexibility into the management of their daily working lives. And particularly when they're working at home, they're going to need that. They might think that they've settled into a relatively quiet day when other members of the household also working from home start making a noise, or they need to take a different break. They're able to, through the app, just do a simple drag and drop to see if they're able to change that break time, and then the system will automatically approve that break if they're able to. And equally, they can use that same concepts to see if what the likelihood is of being able to request time off would be. So again, you can see a little message on the screen here, a black box on the main mobile phone app here that's giving a likelihood for the acceptance of a time off request. And so an agent would be able to take a look at that and determine if that's something they wanted to do. And equally, you can start to use these tools to apply for overtime and to change and update some of your working preferences if your home life changes. So these are really, really important tools that allows an agent to become more engaged in their working life rather than having a shift inflicted on them. They're able to start creating shifts that work for them, which is hugely important given everything that we're going through. And by providing tools like this, you're essentially able to start reducing levels of sickness and consequently levels of attrition as well. So often you see sickness rates go up because shifts were just too inflexible. So it may be that I needed to leave 30 minutes so that I can go and play a game of football on a Wednesday afternoon, but my shift doesn't allow me to do that, so I have to give up football. So you find then things like sickness and attrition building because of the lack of flexibility that Excel-based planning tools essentially constrain contact centers with. So these are tools that really help with the agent engagement, the agent well-being, and empathy. And that's certainly what we're seeing those customers that have adopted our solution experiencing in their contact centers. So if that particular functionality helps with the pain point of team connection and collaboration, let's take a look at the actual management of teams, management of performance. Once a forecast has been created and schedules built and published that reflect the anticipated demand by channel, WFM applications provide tools for team leaders to help them manage their day-to-day and intraday, as I mentioned earlier. What we're looking at here is one of the screens that a team leader would typically review to see what their team needs to be doing during a particular day, and then to map that to the level of demand, so to help them manage SLAs. So the multicolored bar chart here is showing all of the different scheduled activities during the day. So it includes times when people need to be available and in ready mode, times when they're on breaks, times when one-to-ones are scheduled, and things like that. And then the vertical blue bar below with the orange line on top, that shows how the available resource, the scheduled resource that day, has been mapped accurately to the predicted forecast volumes. Now, we know that while that might be how the day starts off when the contact center opens on a particular day, that then reality kicks in. So a couple of team members might be running late, somebody might phone in sick, the level of volume actually might exceed the forecast volume. And so with all of this information gets overlaid into a screen like this to allow the team leaders and planners to adjust intraday to make sure that they're continuing to meet the SLAs with the resources that they've got available. So all of those tools are available very flexibly, allowing you to adjust your plans within that each and every day. And then this next slide really talks to the productivity to pain point and ensuring that agents are doing what you actually ask them to do, that topic of adherence. So just to kind of talk a little bit about what we're looking at here, I'm going to pick up on Prashant. He's one of the agents, third from the bottom. And if you look on the right-hand side, it's showing that the state for Prashant is actually logged off. So he's not available, he's not working. And yet the green bar next to Prashant's name tells me that he's scheduled to be working. So he's clearly out of adherence. And then one of the columns here is showing me that he's been in an out of adherence state for over an hour, and an alarm has been triggered also that's been running for over an hour. So we've got the capability to build these concepts of alarms and activity triggers to help the team leader manage their teams, manage the adherence in real time. And if you can improve adherence, then you're essentially building a more productive contact center operation. So even small percentage points of change with adherence helps an awful lot in the efficient running of the contact center. Now, what we're essentially doing here is taking real-time agent state information from the contact center application itself, and then we're overlaying the schedule, the published schedule for each agent. So that's essentially what we're doing here. And when it comes to that real-time feed, the WFM application integrates with pretty much all contact center telephony platforms, and indeed the non-voice elements as well, whether that's from the contact center provider or from applications like CRMs. So all of those things are available from an integration point of view. Now, really what I wanted to, the kind of final thing I wanted to say about this slide was that customers are absolutely using this adherence information to drive the efficient running of their operations. But certainly this year, I think people are utilizing this type of data and these capabilities to be able to drill down to see if there's a pattern of out of adherence that Prashant maybe has, not necessarily from a performance and from a punishment point of view, but as an operation to kind of connect with Prashant in this example, to see if there's any help that can be offered to change the shift profile, to see if there's any issues at home that means that the particular shift that has been created for Prashant maybe doesn't necessarily fit what's being experienced at home right now. So certainly we're seeing team leaders being more empowered and I think more helpful and more empathetic to help the contact center agents in that remote setting. So I've shown you how workforce management can help to support the key remote work pain points that we described, but I wanted to replay this earlier message from a few slides previously, that now is the perfect time for workforce management. Some of the things that I've touched upon are particularly around productivity, can provide quantifiable business benefits that give you a financial return, it really over a few short months. So I've just described here some of the examples of where savings can be made. You need to build a business case. You can't leave a presentation like this and then go straight to business case build. You need some assistance with that. And I just wanted to kind of point out that we've got some ROI modeling tools that will help you do that, absolutely do that. So online tools where you plug in your own kind of key metrics for your own center, and the output from that is a really valuable report that shows potential areas for saving, the payback period, and that report is essentially the initial business case document that you can take to your execs to raise the WFM flag up the pole. Cost containment is probably one of the #1 priorities for all businesses today, and workforce management can absolutely help that, as well as addressing some of those key pain point issues that I've described throughout the presentation. And my final slide really is that call to arms that I referenced right at the beginning. I promised that I'd leave you with something of a rallying cry. As individuals and as employees, we've all had to react and to adapt to the pandemic this year. Before March, I'm sure many of you were in the throes of plotting paths that you could take to transform contact center, essentially transform the customer experience that you were able to deliver via your centers. But I just wanted to kind of say, take heart. Some businesses have been able to make some transformations in months and make the kind of changes that would typically take years to achieve. It is doable. You can kind of build operating models and execute on those models using easy to deploy tools like workforce management, incremental steps that will take you to where you need to go to prepare for a future, essentially when you can thrive. And I wish you all the very best of luck in moving to that. And finally, I just wanted to say thank you. I think I've probably just run over by a number of minutes. Apologies for that. A few technical issues right at the start. But I hope that was a useful roundup to day 2. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you very much, Richard. If you could just stop sharing the slides, perfect. So I think, really interesting topic. And, one of the comments I made yesterday was the amount of people that had never worked from home prior to lockdown. So it's just shy of 24 million people. So, clearly there's cultural challenges that come with it. There's also a shift in management, and then it's about making sure the tools are available to support that. We've talked a fair amount over the last couple of days about the growth of digital and new communication channels, and of course, today we see it's not just phone and email and things like web chat. We're seeing social media interaction. We're seeing WhatsApp interaction, SMS interaction. I think for me, the question is how much more complex would it be for someone to actually analyze all of these different interactions and optimize the workforce and the shift patterns without these sort of tools, with the growth of digital channels? How on earth would you go about doing it?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and there's some great examples of how in March organizations that were 70-80% voice, and then the rest of the percentage on non-voice channels, had in the space of a week to switch entirely the other way, and that's because their telephony infrastructure didn't allow agents to take phone calls at home, and so they had to almost take down the phone call and shift entirely to non-voice channels. So how the hell do you deal with that? I mean, what your Excel model isn't built for that. Your plans aren't built for that. They're probably built using 13-week planning cycles, and you're just not able to kind of take that requirement for flexibility and agility and twist it quickly into something that works for your business and for your agents. You need WFM tools for that, and this, as you could continue to list all of those non-voice channels, couldn't you? And that each year there's another channel that you think is Instagram probably is perhaps the one to consider in this year and next for one of the newer social channels that could have an impact in the contact center. Well, they've got to be embraced. The good news is, with all of those platforms, that they're relatively modern. They're all built with open APIs. Like Lego building blocks, it's easy to kind of stitch them together and pull that data out. Because it's data and less so voice, it's easy to translate, analyze all of that stuff from a quality and deep analytics point of view. So the opportunity is there. I mean, it was on Owen's slide, wasn't it? And Owen's presentation, where he was arguing or considering the position of voice moving forward compared to non-voice. He didn't say that it would be replaced. He said that that you need to cater for all channels and find a combination of self-serve as well as assisted serve solutions, and cater for them with all of the tools you've got in your contact center. And it really is about agility.
Yeah, and I think there's that the old adage, you can't manage what you can't measure. And I think, as I said, with more and more channels and greater demand, without tools in place, by the time you've actually understood the problem, things could have changed again. So actually having eyes on the data and controls to be able to quickly, effectively pivot and look at what if scenarios, I think is going to be really important. I think this is a must tool for the future, really.
That what if planning has been critical in the last months. Organizations were just trying to figure out what their agent cost would be. As 75% plus the cost of running a contact center is the people. So the CFOs of all businesses, as things changed, were putting pressure on the resource planners to give some indication of what level of volume of interaction they needed support through their teams through time, and to give a kind of small, medium and large scenario plan for each one of those. And so again, that's days and days of work out of an Excel spreadsheet, and an afternoon's work in a workforce management tool.
So I mean, there's obviously big savings from a time and a cost perspective for people using the tools, but have you got an indication as the sort of ranges that businesses have achieved from an efficiency or a savings perspective by getting by getting it right using workforce management and optimization tools?
Yeah, I mean, one of my slides was that kind of business case slide where I kind of indicated just getting things like a accurate forecast done, and then making sure that you're allocating the right number of agents based on that accurate forecast. That can have anywhere between like 15 and 25% benefit in the cost of running the center. And then things like adherence, I've talked about how percentage point changes in managing adherence can have a huge impact too. Overtime changes, the fact you could be chucking overtime at people that you don't need to offer overtime to, where individuals already in their chairs might be available to work a little bit extra. So these are the things that, just using shift preferences and things like that can just have a dramatic effect. So you're talking about a significant potential productivity gain, a cash gain. And when we run the ROI calculator for organizations, sometimes you'll have seen examples where you think, hang on, this ROI is just too good. We need to kind of downplay it a little bit, because you can get an ROI within 3 to 5 months for a workforce management application. And in some examples, you're seeing organizations deploying workforce management, realizing the savings that we showed in an ROI calculator, and then almost using that to help fund other technology advances in the contact center. So, it's almost like that kind of concept of a self-funded roadmap. That is happening too.
And I think it's going to create the bridge between balancing business need for cost saving, efficiency, with the flexibility requirements of home workers and maybe different variants in shift patterns, plus of course, as I said, the growth of digital. So a lot of different areas that are all coming together, probably to create the perfect storm for you guys, right?
Yeah, well, let's hope so. We could do with some of those CRM vendors doing more work on their APIs. The concept of, it's easy with a voice call. You know when it starts, when it stops, average handle times, fits neatly into kind of 15-minute chunks, and you can workforce management that whole thing every day of the week. It's a little more difficult with lengthier contact cycles for things like web chat.
And of course, we then got new areas that come to the fore then around automation and handoff between technology platforms and people. So it's something that definitely need eyes on, and definitely need tools to be able to manage.
It's that step. I can kind of encourage people to move away from Excel spreadsheets all the time, but you have to recognize there's a people and process thing there, and cultural change that is not necessarily an easy thing to embrace.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I've certainly asked you a few questions, and we've had a good chat there, good debate. I can't see any other questions in the chat, so if anyone's got any, please do add. It's usually a sign that you've obviously covered off all of the aspects in sufficient detail. So I'd like to thank you for great presentation, Richard. I think, as I said, it's going to become a really important tool moving forwards to optimize and support some of the efficiencies that organizations can gain without impacting customer experience, and supporting the change that we're seeing in the way in which we all communicate today. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks to the team as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.